Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmitt. I have a question that I want to pose for you today. Are you creating the culture that you want, or are you just creating compliance? A lot of times we get caught up and worried about having people be compliant and getting them to do what we tell them to do. And we think that that's leadership. And it's part of it. But the bigger part of it, and the part that you want, the reason you're listening to a podcast about leadership or about workplace culture, is because you want a good workplace culture. And good might be relative, but typically it includes problem solving, taking ownership, getting things done, thinking. It includes some of those basic things, because what we don't want is we don't just want a bunch of people that do exactly what we tell them. Because what happens is when we add more people, we as the leader then have more work. And you can even take this into real life, because when you start seeing how people, like, think about children, right? Think about the friend that you may have had, or the person you knew whose parents like had their thumb on them real hard, right? Like that kid listened and did exactly what they were told. They had to be home at 9, even when they were 18 years old, and they never really had a chance to think. And then they went away to college and they went crazy because they were never given any kind of freedom, or they were never taught to think or to be faced with these kind of tough decisions like, do I do my homework or go out and party every single night of the week? And when the choices are always made for them, people get overwhelmed, they can't handle it, and it gets kind of crazy. And that is not a culture that we want. That's not how we want to raise our kids, number one, but it is not a culture that we want for our workplace, because when we start promoting people and we want to start maybe backing away ourselves as the leader, or we want to have a little more freedom and not be there 6 days a week, when we start to do that and we've created this culture of you're not allowed to think because I'm the boss and I'm going to think, then we have problems. Then we run into, I'm working too much and I shouldn't be the last person in the parking lot because I'm the leader. These are real problems that I have faced in my life and my leadership. I have had clients, or maybe clients, future clients, face these problems. Like, this is why people come and get help. This is why we're listening here today, because we want freedom. We want our teams to be successful. And in order to do that, we have to lead them successfully well into a culture that teaches them that. So let's get into what all of that means for you. So first of all, let's talk about what is culture. So culture is essentially a system of beliefs. So if you think about like cultures in the world, there is a language, there are common customs, there are common thought patterns and ethical patterns. And essentially it feels like a bunch of actions that we might visibly see. But if you've ever listened to any of my podcasts before, actions, or aka behaviors, are a result of thoughts. So culture is essentially a belief system, and in order to get people to buy into a culture, we have to teach them how we think, how we in this culture think. Does that sound scary to you? Does that sound like, are we mind controlling? And if there is a fine line here, right? There is, because we're not mind controlling. And it really comes down to intent. Our intention of creating this positive workplace culture is beneficial for all who are part of it. And what that means is that when we share in this positive workplace culture, which is we treat people with respect, we problem solve, we take mistakes and we learn from them rather than beating people up, we teach people how to have ownership, we are willing to take people on a journey of development rather than saying, oh, you failed the first time, now you're gone, right? There is a culture in those belief systems that is there. And these are good, whether it's in the workplace or outside the workplace. So it is a positive way of thinking. It is not, it can sound like mind control when we start to think about it, or indoctrination, or all of these things. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is that the tools are the same because it is influencing thoughts, but intent matters. If your intent is good and well-intentioned and beneficial, and your goal is not control, your goal is to help people fit into the workplace, help people be successful in the workplace, and then help your workplace be successful in the world. And that is that fine line. So let's get into it and see what does that look like? How do we get that for our company, and what do we need to do? So when somebody comes into a place, so let's say a new hire comes in, we need to teach them the basics. And in some respects, this is where it might look a little bit like we're trying to control, right? This is when we teach them the rules. We say, go and do this. Okay, they do it. Now go and do this. And then they do it. So that is how it starts. And we call this a level 1 delegation. And the problem is that, yes, that's how we should start. But the problem is sometimes we have a hard time moving off of that level because it's easy. We say, go do it. They do it. Everybody seems happy because everybody's getting things done. Things are moving forward. We feel like we've freed up some time because all we're doing is saying, go do the thing. Someone else gets to spend the time doing the thing, and then they come back to us. The problem comes in when they run into a problem and have to think. Or we say, oh, you have been doing this for such a long time. Now you're going to go train this person and lead this person. And now they're responsible for doing these other things. But what we've taught them is that they tell the person to do something and then do it. So they've been just doing that for us. And now that's how they're going to train the next person. And they're still doing all these things and have a hard time moving off the dime from doing all of these things. I want to take a quick sidebar into working genius, because there are some working genius combinations that do like that. And that's okay. That is fine. And they can still think, make decisions, problem solve. It just might not feel as comfortable, but they can still do it. And maybe they don't want to be the leader of teams, but maybe they want to, have their small team that they're working with and they're very successful with. And that's okay too. Okay. So it's important to note that there are some people that like that kind of structure and that want to be told what to do and still can become great leaders. And there are other people that, might really excel in taking it on their own, or maybe they want to think before it's time. So like our I combinations, anything with an I, they really just want to go and think and reinvent the wheel all the time. So we have to kind of keep them in tow when it is sort of just do what I say time, right? So being aware of where people are in their geniuses can also help streamline the culture, because we're not saying you're wrong because you're that way. We're saying, hey, we operate this way and we're going to use your geniuses here, and you get to apply your geniuses here. And we're all going to kind of have to play in our frustrations from time to time, and that's fine. We're going to support one another through that. And that's how we continue to build the culture, because we're working with people, we're problem solving the things we have, and we're accepting kind of who we are as a person and saying this is the culture we want to live in and have. So to kind of put it in perspective, every leader, whether they want to or not, has created a culture, whether it was intentional or unintentional. And it's helpful to try to understand what that culture is, and it's best to do it with intention. So to know what the culture is that we're trying to roll out there. So how do we do that? All right. So the first step in doing that is first determining what your company values are, what your organizational values are. I've talked about this on several other podcast episodes, and maybe you're saying, oh my gosh, Kristina, get off the values thing. But when we say that culture is a system of thoughts and beliefs, our values are the core of that. So if we have values that we are strong problem solvers and we support one another through thick and thin or something like that, like if those are our values, then that's going to look different from, we are independent thinkers. We strive to do our best. And it's going to look different. So if we don't understand what our values are, then we are not reinforcing them. So the first step, if you're looking at yourself and you're saying, these people are not, like, my team is not operating the way I would love them to be. I still feel like I'm always problem solving for everybody. And I feel like, some people are taking it on their own, but not everybody is. And I need more people to be doing that. So if you're saying I have not created the culture that I want, this is what I want you to do. Sit down with your top team and determine your company values. So the best way to do that is to look at the people who are successful and then look at the people that are not successful in the organization. So they may be people that are no longer there, or they may be people that are there that are got question marks on their head, right? So take those people, have a look at those people and figure out what character traits do they have. And now compare them to you personally. You as in the leaders in that room, especially you, the leader. Do you also have those traits? And the 3 or 4 that bubble out are going to be your core values. The purpose for looking at the ones that didn't work out is that sometimes the opposite of those traits that those people have are the values that we want to have too. So it can be helpful in identification. So that is your first step. So once you bubble those all up to the top, now you need to train everybody. So yes, you're going to have new hires, but you've got people that have been operating the same way that they've always been operating without this sort of direction. So the first thing you have to do is you have to share them, and you have to be transparent and obvious and say, we're making a change. We are working our culture into the culture that we want, because what that's going to do is it's going to bring us together better as a team. We're going to support one another better, and we're going to operate as one unit instead of a bunch of individuals trying to scramble to get to the finish line whatever way we can. So it's going to be easier for us. We're going to be focused. We're not going to be running around like chickens with their heads cut off. We are going to work together, and we're going to have some clarity around where we're going. So there is motivation for them, because especially the ones that are your leaders or the ones that are going to help you get this across the finish line are probably already encompassing most of them and wish everybody else did too. So you're going to make them very happy, and you're probably going to help those people that have been struggling a bit get some clarity on decisions and get some clarity on how they can fit best in the company and how they can improve both personally and professionally. So you're going to share that with them. And then you're going to teach them in real life. And now this is, I'm going to say the most challenging part and probably most time-consuming part of this, because what you want to do is you want to take one at a time, and you want to say, we're going to focus on this one. And you want to give each one about 2 months, because these are beliefs, which are essentially a bunch of habits in how we think, habits in how we behave. So you're going to take a big focus, and it's going to feel kind of weird if you're not normally talking about how we behave. So let's say one of our cultural beliefs is that we problem solve. We problem solve extremely well. Let's say one of our things is that we will identify the need of our clients and implement a solution, right? So this is it is a method of problem solving. So what you want to do as that kind of leadership team is look through and kind of say, okay, what are some examples of this? So if we have this situation, this is how we'd want to respond. So you start to teach people this kind of in advance. So if you've listened to my ABC model one, we are creating the antecedent. So we're saying, this is how you should behave in this situation. Then we're going to observe situations, and we're going to say, after we observe the situation, we're going to say, I saw that you exhibited this behavior. Thank you. That is amazing. That totally supports our culture. Great. Or you're going to say, I was, with you during this situation, and I observed you do this. In your opinion, does that match with this culture or not match with this culture? Okay, well, let's talk about what that looks like. So this is what we would expect. What are your thoughts on it? So you're giving essentially a constructive feedback conversation about these behaviors. And this is a little bit different, because typically we focus our feedback conversations on actual outcomes, not in how we approach it. But when we're getting a culture put in place, it's more about how we approach it than the outcome. And I know you're probably saying, no, Kristina, it's about the outcome. I need the outcome to be good. But if the outcome is achieved by stepping all over everybody else and beating them up on the way down the ladder, on the way up the ladder, is that really the outcome you want? No, because it doesn't fit your culture. And if we want a continued self-driven culture of this, then we have to teach them how we do it, how we think, how we approach. You will likely re-clarify this as you go, right? You're going to come up with a few example situations. You can talk about them in advance. And then as you start to observe it and talk about it, then you're going to start getting more clarity to help people see that again and again and again. And that's really how we train people to behave in certain ways. Think back to your childhood. If your culture of your family was big on table manners, do you think they would let you stand up in your chair and yell? Absolutely not. Yeah, maybe your food got finished, but they would not allow that to happen if your culture was to have excellent table manners. So it's not any different. We're still the same human beings that we were when we were children, with a little bit more formed prefrontal cortex and amygdalas and all of that kind of thing, and life experiences under our belts, but we're still the same mammal that we were before, and we still have those same kinds of needs when we're learning. So we're going to take one at a time. Again, give it about 2 months, or, depending on which habit formation system you follow, these 66 days, 90 days, it is going to be more than 30 days though, because after that first 30 days, sometimes you can think that you failed, but really it takes like a couple more 30 days to keep going with it. Or you could be still super excited about it in the first 30 days and then get in the second 30 days and then totally lose it. So give yourself, I would say 60 to 90 days per value. And so beyond these real-time things, we're also going to utilize one-on-one coaching. So now this is the best tool for really having some focus time to get into the brains of other people, right? So coaching is one of those tools that I think gets misused or underutilized, because sometimes we'll come in and we'll just talk about the project, and it's great to talk about projects, but the other part of it that we have to do is we have to check in with the person. We have to get their thoughts that maybe they don't know how to say out loud, or they're afraid to say out loud. We need to get those thoughts out of them so that we can understand what's going on. So you can take maybe 10 minutes of each coaching session and say, okay, well, let's talk about, this cultural thing. How is that going? What are your thoughts around it? And they say, probably you're going to hear a lot of people like, yeah, I totally get it. I'm fine. I'm doing that. Then you dig in further, right? Then you say, okay, well, tell me how you've exemplified this week. What interactions have gone well? Okay, now tell me a time when it didn't go as well as you wanted. Because even if they're totally doing it all the time, they're still probably going to make a mistake, right? So just start digging into those questions, and you might, bring out that maybe there's going to be a challenge there for them because of something that's, going on in their life or happened previously, or some belief system that they already have. Because we are trying to dig to the beliefs, and we're trying to get everybody on our team aligned with some specific belief systems around how we behave at work. Okay, and then you're going to start, or just continue to ask these sorts of questions and start to say, okay, well, what did you think about that situation? How did it go for you? What were you feeling when you were doing that? Did it feel weird? So the reason we ask questions, and the reason why coaching is this amazing tool for this, is because when we ask questions, people learn. Different neurons get fired in our brains that trigger different other systems and help us to learn better. And so we will remember it more if we've had to dig in our brain to answer a question and then bring out the answer, versus someone just told us what was different. So we want to really use those times to get that going. So within that year, maybe as you're doing each one, you then want to start incorporating those values into hiring and orientation practices. So get questions that start to bubble out. Are you a problem solver? Are you, do you help others? Do you what are those culture things you're trying to find out about? Think of some questions of how you're going to test that. Think of some situations you can put an interview candidate into that you can actually see that. It's sometimes you're limited, right? But that's what you want to see. And then put it into your orientation. So you're obviously going to train on your values during orientation, but you're going to have team members work through and chat through how that looks and say, oh, well, I, really love this value. It's my favorite one. And this is how I do it. And this is what it looks like for me. So you're getting people to give them the real time examples of those practices, of those culture pieces. So if you think this sounds kind of cool and kind of interesting, but you need some help clarifying what that looks like, I want you to reach out to me, because this is something that we do in strategy sessions. We get real clear on what those cultural values are, and we can incorporate that into how you're going to roll that out into your system as well. So reach out to me. Let's have a chat. Let's get some clarity around it. And let's get your team functioning in a way that is making your business more successful, making you more successful, and making them more successful, both in the workplace and at home. So if you like today's episode, please like it, share it with a friend, leave a review, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, and I will see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmitt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.